Hi everyone, today we are doing a short video on how to compose a speech. You will need to know how to compose speeches all throughout your teaching career because that is pretty much what you were doing. You were composing speeches for your lessons on a daily basis, except they're a lot more interactive than your traditional speeches. And of course, you want learner input and they're impromptu and so on and so on. However, you need to know how to captivate your little learners using your speech. So let us jump into our short and sweet presentation on how to compose a speech. The first thing you need to do is understand your topic. Before you do anything else, you need to do thorough research on what you are speaking about. You should know the ins and outs of it. So research it. Read up on various sources, various opinions, various studies on your topic so that you understand it fully. Then explain it to yourself. This is something that always helps me understand exactly where I am in my understanding, is explaining my topic to myself to see if I understand it before anyone else will. And if I become confused, I know that someone else is likely to become confused as well. So after you've explained it to yourself, you then explain it to others. Find someone, ask someone around the house, ask a friend, do you mind listening to my understanding of this topic on what I have researched and then explain it to them? Ask them if they understand thoroughly what it is they don't understand and make notes on that, what it is they do understand and make notes on that, and that way you can do a bit of a stock take on your strengths and weaknesses. You then have to, well, you don't have to, but my recommendation is always that you explain it to a child. This is because, one, when you understand something fully, you should be able to explain it as simply as possible. And who better to explain it as simply as possible to than a child? And when you are going to head into your teaching career, you are working with ECD learners. And so you need to be able to explain things to children. So ask the child, do you understand what I'm saying? What do you understand and don't you understand? If you can simplify it fully, you know that you understand your topic. Then you need to know your audience. Who are you speaking to? Are you speaking to your colleagues? Are you speaking to children? And so, insofar as you can, try to understand the cultural background of the group of people you are going to speak to, the average age group, because obviously there are different understandings in different generations. What you would explain to an older generation, you would explain differently to a younger generation. There are different interests between different age groups as well. Also, understand the educational background of the group you are speaking to. And this is not with the means of insulting anyone with your speech, but it's also understanding the level of language you ought to use, the level of research, the depth of the research. And so, when you are speaking to a group of highly educated individuals, you can speak using perhaps more complex reasoning or complex ideas. You don't have to break them down as much, but you also want it to be simple regardless of who you're speaking to, so that everyone in the audience is able to understand. Hopefully, your audience is also humble enough to be able to listen to you speak without criticizing or thinking that it is not a highly it's not highly educational to them, or the language isn't as formal as they would like it to be, or your accent isn't sufficient, and so on and so on. You go in and you speak to your crowd, understanding that your point is to get a message across. Your gender, is your group of people, or are your groups of people separated into specific genders? Perhaps is it that you are speaking to predominantly male of a certain age group? Are you speaking to females predominantly of a certain age group? And this is going to tell you as well what you need to address, how you can address it. If you're a female and it is relatable to a female crowd, you might feel more relaxed than speaking to a male crowd, especially if the topic might be gender specific. Social status. Now, again, this isn't with the means of insulting anyone, whether it's that you're speaking to a group of people of a higher social status to the other. The reason that you need to understand this is due to the fact that you have different challenges in different social situations. You have different challenges amongst leaders than you have towards subordinates. You've got different struggles, perhaps, between those who are extremely wealthy in society versus those who are not. And so it also helps you understand who you are speaking to, and so that you can become a relatable speaker. The professions. Is it a group of lawyers who you are speaking to? Is it a group of doctors you are speaking to? Who are you addressing? There's also certain jargon that you use when you speak to certain professional groups that you might be able to use in one and not the other. And so it is very noteworthy to understand that. So knowing your audience plays a huge role in what you say. If you know that the audience is very quiet, you might find or know going in that you won't receive much reaction from the crowd. If you know that the crowd might be very charismatic, you won't be caught off guard, knowing that there might be a lot of cheering or shouting or agreeing or affirmation, and so on. Next, your language usage. Now, I know that this is a tricky one because language has so many incredible rules. And even as someone who studied language, I still get caught off guard, whether it be in my speech or in my writing. And this happens very frequently. And language is a beautiful thing. And there's much to be respected about it. So you need to ask yourself as well, is this formal, informal, or neutral? So, if it is a formal speech, perhaps you are addressing it in a more professional sense. If it is an informal speech, perhaps it's a group of people sitting in a circle around you who you can address more freely. Perhaps you can use slang. Perhaps you can use a friendlier language as opposed to formal language where you have to follow certain rules, such as not using slang or colloquial language, perhaps not using contractions in your speech. And so you need to understand once again what the setting is. Is it a group of people who you've known for a very long time and therefore it will be informal? Is it a group of people, once again, who you've just met? A group of professionals who you need to address? Is it your boss? Is it superior members of your task team? Who is it that you are addressing, who you are addressing? Or is it neutral? In other words, fact based. You are there to just give facts. It is a factual assessment. The speech is there perhaps to educate only factually. And then your language choice, in other words, is it that you are speaking in a second language or a home language? So sometimes that is not a choice that is given to you, but a choice that is made for you, that you have to speak in a certain language if you can. And so sometimes you need to understand that the audience might not be English home language speakers, so you need to address them in such a way that you simplify the language that you use in a manner that they can understand, but again, that is not, let's call it dumbed down so far in as that you make them feel belittled. Then your structure. Now, this is a very important bit. Your introduction, your body, and your conclusion. People use various metaphors, perhaps, to explain the structure of an essay or a speech. Some use the sandwich analogy, saying that the introduction and the conclusion are like slices of bread, and whatever filling you have in the middle, your tomatoes, your lettuce, your burger patty, whatever it might be, is your body. I like to use the ocean and river stream analogy, where your entire speech, your topic is the ocean, and your body and your paragraphs are streams that flow into that ocean. It creates the ocean. And so, with your introduction, you want to ensure this is where you introduce the topic. But your introduction has to be done in such a way that you are not simply dictating what your topic is, but you are describing or explaining the topic. You're introducing it. And so your introduction must tell you what the body of your speech will be about, simply based on its contents. So you don't get on stage all the time and say, "Good day, today my speech is about the ABCs and how children learn the ABCs." Instead, you could walk up, introduce yourself, and then engage with the audience from the get go. Say, "I want everyone to say the following while clapping your hands." Say, "A, B, K, D." This is how we teach phonics to children, and you start your speech in that sense so that the audience has an understanding of where the speech is going, as opposed to just saying as opposed to dictating what it is about. Then your body is the fullness of your essay. That is your elaboration. So your introduction needs to give an overview of what is to come, but it needs to be enticing and captivating and draw your audience in. And then your body is the elaboration of your introduction. And this is where you give details and where you can explain studies that you've read, and when you can give anecdotal examples, where you can explain stories. And this is the fullness of your essay. And then you've got your conclusion, and that has to reflect what has been written in your introduction and in your body, and it gives the conclusive message. Now, your conclusion does not contain any new information. Your conclusion there is to affirm your stance, it's to close off what you have already said. Essentially, when you read an introduction and a conclusion, you should have an idea of exactly what your body was about. Okay, so that is where you close everything off. And then for your conclusion, you could say, "Thus, we teach children the abacadus as opposed to the ABCs so that they are able to sound out words," and blah, blah, blah. You close your body off. Now, with your opening statements, it needs to be relevant, captivating, and memorable. You want your audience to know or to remember exactly what it is you said. You want them to be drawn in to want to listen to you more. You want them to be captivated so that they know what is to come isn't just going to be a boring lecture. Now, I find that interacting with your audience is the best way to captivate them. As poor humans, we've got terrible attention spans at times, and so we tend to become jittery or look away. And so the best way I find is to actually interact with the audience, ask them questions, get them involved. And this way they become part of what you are saying, and they remember their contribution as well. They remember what they were asked as well. And so this you can do throughout your speech. Now, notes to remember. Consider the following. Consider your pitch. If you're going to speak in a high pitch all the time, if you're going to speak in a low pitch all the time, if you're going to rush through your work, or if you are going to slow it down. You need to consider when and how to use pitch and pace as well. And you need to consider your breathing. If you are running out of breath, if you are running through your speech, how to slow it down and take a moment to reflect. If you find that your attitude towards the audience is cold and abrasive, how you could change that. And so when you go up and you speak to a group of people, they shouldn't find that you're aggressive or closed off or shy, or that you're falling inward Alternatively, that you are overwhelming and all over the place and you just want to jump out at the audience and you just want to grab someone in. And at all times, some people might be overstimulated. And so you need to find a way to be charismatic, but also balanced. And your attitude and your body language will indicate that. Are you there to in a way that is exciting for your audience? Is your body language showing that you're interested in what you are speaking about? Is your body language showing that you are just there to prove how intelligent you are? Or are you there to actually enjoy the audience as well and for them to enjoy what you're saying too? Then the attentiveness to the audience. Engage with your audience, look at your audience, find out what it is, or try to gauge what their reaction is. Liven them up if you need to liven them up, if you find that they are perhaps not or disinterested. I remember one evening I went to a conference. It was a church conference, and I understand that not all of us go to church. But my experience was the following: is that the speaker identified very quickly that the church audience, she said everyone was dead, that no one was interactive, no, it didn't seem they wanted to listen. And she said there was something in the spirit that was off. And she said to us, you stand up right now and you pray. Let us liven this atmosphere. Let us bring it to life. Let us invite the Spirit of God into this place. And I think that was, my goodness, that was over 10 years ago, and I still remember it today because the audience got involved and she identified a lack in the audience and she was able to revive that audience through those actions without being aggressive or overwhelming, but through grace and gentleness, but also through assertiveness. And so, passion. You need to know when to be passionate and when to tone it down. So you can be excited about your topic, and that's great. But you also need to know when to tone it down. And you can be passionate, but you can be calm at the same time. And so, in this way, you will be able to share with the audience your passions and your interests, but also knowing that it's their passion, something they're interested in, something they want to hear about. Otherwise, I suppose they wouldn't be there to hear your speech after all. And so, if it's something that you're jointly passionate about, that makes it easier because you know they'll have an innate interest to hearing what you have to say. So I hope this helps you. I hope this assists you with your speech activity that you have to do. And I wish you all of the best. If you have any questions or queries, please feel free to contact us.